Let me tell you about the most chaotic day in the history of the Tailors Club. Picture this, a small hall filled with 30 women, all dressed in matching bright yellow anchor uniforms with intricate purple patterns. Each uniform was identical, down to the last detail, because that's how Mama Dunny, their late president, wanted it. Unity through fabric, she used to say. But unity? What happened that Tuesday afternoon was anything but unity. At the high table sat 4 women behind name tags that seemed to mock the chaos unfolding before them. There was Auntie Bimp, the deputy president, frantically banging a wooden gavel that had seen better days. Next to her, Sister Folake, the treasurer, was sweating so much her makeup was running down her face like a watercolor painting in the rain. The secretary, Mrs. Kyoma, was furiously scribbling notes while shaking her head, and the chief whip, Mama Kimi, was standing up, pointing fingers, and shouting at the top of her lungs. Order! Order! Auntie Bim's voice cracked as she slammed the gavel repeatedly. But nobody was listening. Nobody. In the front row, Sister Ngozi was on her feet, wagging her finger at someone behind her. You are a liar. A big fat liar. How can you say such a thing about me and Brother Tunde? I saw you with my own 2 eyes, shouted Mama Funmi from 3 rows back, her anchor head wrapped slightly askew from all the gesticulating. At ShopRite last Sunday, holding hands like teenagers, and your husband was at home with malaria. The entire hall erupted. Women jumped to their feet, voices overlapping in a symphony of accusations, denials, and gasps of shock. Chai, Sister Ngozi, I knew something was fishy. But Brother Tunde is married to Sister Patience. Where is Sister Patience, Seth? Auntie Bimp looked like she was about to faint. This was supposed to be a simple meeting about their late president's funeral arrangements and club development. Instead, it had turned into a soap opera episode. Please, please, she pleaded, but her voice was drowned out by the chaos. Sister Folake, the treasurer, was looking more nervous by the minute. She kept dabbing her forehead with a handkerchief and shooting worried glances at Auntie Bimp. Something was definitely wrong with that woman. Quiet. Mama Kimi, the chief whip, finally stood up and used her outdoor voice, the one she reserved for calling her children from 3 compounds away. Have you all forgotten we are here to plan Mama Dunny's funeral? The woman who fed you, clothed you, and gave you purpose? Shame on all of you. The room gradually quieted, but the tension was so thick you could cut it with a pair of tailoring scissors. Auntie Bimp cleared her throat, trying to regain control. Thank you, Mama Kimi. Now, as I was saying before this interruption, we need to discuss the funeral arrangements for our beloved president, Mama Dunny, and also talk about the future development of our club. She shuffled through her papers, hands slightly trembling. The funeral is set for next Saturday, and we need to decide on the uniform we'll all wear, the catering arrangements, and the financial contributions from each member. Speaking of financial contributions, called out Sister Amaka from the middle section, can we first know how much money we currently have in the club account? Because last month, Sister Folake said we had problems buying the anchor fabric for our uniforms. All eyes turned to Sister Folake, who looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Her face was glistening with perspiration, and she kept opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. Well, you see, the thing is, she stammered. The thing is what? Pressed Mama Sul, another sharp-eyed member. We contributed N50,000 each last month. That's N1.5 million total. Where is the money? Sister Folake looked desperately at Auntie Bimp, who was avoiding eye contact. Something was definitely cooking, and it wasn't jollof rice. Sisters, please, Auntie Bimp interrupted quickly. Let's not turn this into an interrogation. Sister Folake will prepare a proper financial report for our next meeting. Today, we need to focus on. Focus on what? Interrupted Mama Janet, standing up so fast her chair nearly toppled over. Focus on how you and the treasurer have been eating our money. The hall exploded again. This time, the accusations were flying from all directions. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. These people think we are fools. Mama Dunny is turning in her grave. Where's our money? Auntie Bimp was banging the gavel so hard I thought she might break it. This is not the time or place for such accusations. We are here to what? Mama Janet wasn't backing down. To plan another way for you people to steal from us. Do you think we don't have sense? Last month, we couldn't afford proper refreshments for our meeting, but you, Auntie Bimp, came here wearing a new gold necklace that must have cost at least N200,000. Auntie Bimp's hand instinctively went to her neck, where indeed a shiny new gold chain was gleaming. This was a gift from my husband. Your husband who is a bus conductor. Sister Amaka asked sarcastically. When did bus conductors start buying N200,000 jewelry? The room was in complete uproar now. Women were standing on chairs, pointing fingers, and shouting over each other. The beautiful yellow anchor uniforms were starting to look disheveled as their wearers gestured wildly. But then, something even more explosive happened. Sister Patience, who had been quietly sitting in the back row, suddenly stood up. Remember her? The wife of the brother Tunde who was allegedly holding hands with Sister Ngozi at ShopRite? Since we are exposing secrets today, she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a hot knife through butter, let me tell you people something interesting. The hall went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. 2 weeks ago, I followed my husband because I suspected he was cheating. And guess where he led me? She paused dramatically, her eyes scanning the room. To Sister Folake's house. They were not there for any meeting. They were there counting bundles and bundles of money. Sister Folake's face went from pale to green. She looked like she was about to vomit right there on the high table. That's not. I can explain. She whispered. Explain what? Sister Patience was on fire now. Explain how you and your boyfriend are sharing our club money, or explain how you thought nobody would find out. The revelation hit the room like a bomb. The women were now shouting questions, accusations, and expressing their shock all at once. But Auntie Bimp, instead of looking shocked, looked caught. Her eyes were darting around like someone looking for an escape route. Mama Kimi, the chief whip, was staring at both Auntie Bimp and Sister Folake with the kind of look that could freeze water. Is this true? She asked quietly, but her voice carried across the room. Before anyone could answer, the hall door burst open, and in walked the most unexpected person possible. Senator Adebayo Okonkwo, in his crisp white agbada and black cap, flanked by 2 men in dark suits. The entire room froze like someone had pressed a pause button on a remote control. Good afternoon, distinguished women of the Tailors Club. The senator's voice boomed across the silent hall. Suddenly, all the women scrambled to sit down properly, smoothing their anchor uniforms and trying to look respectable. The chaos from 2 minutes ago might as well have been a dream. Good afternoon, Your Excellency, they chorused, like school children greeting their headmaster. Auntie Bimp, despite her earlier distress, managed to put on a bright smile. Your Excellency, what a pleasant surprise. Welcome to our humble meeting. The senator smiled broadly, clearly pleased with the reception. I came here today because I've heard wonderful things about your club and the good work you do in the community. In fact, I have some very good news for you. He gestured to one of his aides, who stepped forward with a brown envelope. The state government has approved a grant of 5 million naira for the Tailors Club to support your community development projects and skills training programs. If the hall had been chaotic before, now it was complete pandemonium. But this time, it was pandemonium of joy. 5 million naira. Jesus is Lord. Thank you, Your Excellency. God bless you. So, women were jumping, hugging each other, and some were even crying with joy. The earlier accusations and fights seemed forgotten in the euphoria of the moment. Senator Okonkwo was beaming, clearly enjoying the response. However, he continued, raising his hand for quiet. This money comes with conditions. It must be managed by a responsible and transparent leadership. The state government expects quarterly reports on how the funds are being used. The word transparent seemed to hit Auntie Bimp and Sister Folake like physical blows. They exchanged word glances while trying to maintain their smiles. Of course, Your Excellency, Auntie Bimp managed to say. We assure you that the money will be used responsibly and transparently. Excellent, the senator replied. I also understand that you recently lost your president, Mama Adani. May her soul rest in peace. I hope you will elect a new president soon, someone who can lead this organization to greater heights. And with that innocent comment, he unknowingly dropped another bomb in the room. The women exchanged glances. Everyone had assumed that Auntie Bimp, as deputy president, would automatically become the new president. But now, with 5 million naira at stake and questions about financial impropriety hanging in the air, assumptions were being reconsidered. Your Excellency, spoke up Mama Kimi, the chief whip, we appreciate your confidence in us. We will definitely elect new leadership that will manage these funds with integrity. The emphasis on new leadership was not lost on anyone, especially Auntie Bimp, whose smile was becoming more strained by the minute. After more pleasantries and photo opportunities, the senator and his entourage left, leaving behind an envelope with 5 million naira and a room full of women who were looking at each other with entirely new calculations in their eyes. The moment the door closed behind the senator, the pretense of politeness evaporated. So, said Mama Janet, her voice dripping with implication, we're going to elect new leadership. What do you mean by that? Auntie Bimp asked, but her voice lacked its earlier authority. I mean exactly what I said, Mama Janet replied. We need leadership that can handle 5 million naira transparently. Leadership that hasn't been accused of embezzling our contributions. Those are just accusations, protested Auntie Bimp. There's no proof of anything. No proof. Sister Patience stood up again. I told you I saw your treasurer and my husband counting bundles of money in her house. What more proof do you need? Sister Folake finally found her voice, though it came out as a squeak. That money was not from the club. It was from a private business transaction. What private business? Demanded Mama Sul. Since when did you become a businesswoman? Last month you were complaining that you couldn't afford to buy rice for your family. The questions were coming from all directions now, and Sister Folake was wilting under the pressure. It's complicated. She stammered, but Mama Kimi, the chief whip, was not having any of it. She had been watching quietly, but now she stood up, her imposing figure commanding attention. Sister Folake, she said in a voice that could cut glass, if you cannot give us a straight answer about this money, then perhaps you should step down from your position as treasurer. And maybe, added Mama Janet, looking directly at Auntie Bimp, we should also reconsider the position of deputy president, especially if she was involved in whatever this financial irregularity is. Auntie Bimp's face flushed red. How dare you question my integrity? I have served this club faithfully for 5 years. Serving how? Shot back Sister Amaka. By helping yourself to our contributions. By awarding contracts to yourself? Yes, we know about that too. This was news to many of the women, who turned to look at Sister Amaka with surprise. What contracts? Asked Mrs. Kayoma, the secretary, looking genuinely confused. Sister Amaka stood up, clearly relishing her moment in the spotlight. 3 months ago, the Algun state government awarded our club a contract to supply uniforms for their health workers. The contract was worth $2 million. But somehow, the contract mysteriously moved to Algun State, and our deputy president opened a tailoring shop there to fulfill it. The gasps that followed could probably be heard in the next building. Is this true? Mama Kimi asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Auntie Bimp was opening and closing her mouth like a fish, clearly struggling to find an explanation that didn't sound incriminating. It's not what you think, she finally managed. I was trying to expand the club's reach. The Algon State opportunity was too good to pass up. So you took our contract and our money to another state. Mama Janet was incredulous. And you didn't think to inform the club members who was supposed to benefit from this contract. I was going to tell you. I was waiting for the right time. The right time? Sister Amaka laughed bitterly. The right time was before you took our money and ran to another state. By now, the women were openly calling for Auntie Bimp's resignation. The beautiful yellow anchor uniforms were wrinkled from all the standing, sitting, pointing, and gesticulating, but nobody cared about appearances anymore. I think, said Mama Kimi, raising her voice above the din, we need to hold an emergency election for new leadership, especially now that we have 5 million naira to manage. I second that motion, called out several voices simultaneously. But who will contest? Asked Mrs. Kayoma, ever the practical secretary. Before anyone could answer, a voice from the back of the room spoke up. I will. Everyone turned to see Sister Adani Okafor, not to be confused with their late President Mama Adani, standing up. She was a relatively quiet member who rarely spoke during meetings, but when she did, people listened. She was known for her integrity and her excellent tailoring skills. I nominate myself for the position of president, she said clearly. I believe this club needs leadership that will be transparent, accountable, and focused on the welfare of all members. I second the nomination, called out Mama Janet immediately. But then, another surprise came from the left side of the room. I also nominate myself. This time, it was Brother Emeka, yes, one of the few male members of the predominantly female club. He was a skilled tailor who had joined the club 2 years ago and had been quietly building respect among the members. 2 candidates, said Mama Kimi, clearly pleased with this development. This is how democracy should work. Auntie Bimp looked like she was watching her world crumble around her. Wait a minute. I haven't resigned from my position. I'm still the deputy president, and according to our constitution, I should automatically become president. According to our constitution, Mama Kimi replied coolly, a deputy president can only become president if the members have confidence in her leadership. And right now, I don't see much confidence in this room. The murmurs of agreement that followed this statement were like nails in Auntie Bimp's political coffin. Fine, she said, her voice cracking with desperation. If we're having an election, then I'm also running. I nominate myself for president. So now there were 3 candidates, Sister Adani Okafor, Brother Emeka, and the embattled Auntie Bimp. When will this election take place? Asked Mrs. Kayoma, already reaching for her notepad to record the proceedings. Next week, declared Mama Kimi. That will give everyone time to campaign and for us to organize properly. We'll adjourn today's meeting and reconvene next Tuesday for the election. As the women began to pack up their things and file out of the hall, the conversations were animated and intense. Groups were forming around each candidate, and it was clear that the next week was going to be very interesting indeed. But as I watched this drama unfold, I knew that the real fireworks were yet to come. Because in Nigerian politics, whether it's national, state, or just a tailor's club, there are always more secrets waiting to be revealed. The week that followed was unlike anything the Eco Tailors Club had ever experienced. If you thought the meeting was chaotic, the campaign period was pure madness. Sister Adani Okafor, the quiet woman who had surprised everyone by stepping forward, turned out to be a formidable campaigner. She visited members in their homes, bringing homemade chin-chin and engaging in long conversations about the future of the club. Her message was simple: transparency, accountability, and unity. My sisters, she would say, we have been divided for too long. It's time to come together and build something beautiful, just like we do with our fabrics. Brother Emeka, on the other hand, took a more modern approach. He created a WhatsApp group called Emica for Progress and bombarded members with messages about his vision for the club. His main selling point was his business connections and his promise to secure more government contracts, legitimate ones, he emphasized. But it was Auntie Bimp's campaign that provided the most entertainment. Desperate to save her political career, she went full-scale politician mode. She hired a DJ, rented a small truck with loudspeakers, and drove around the neighborhood announcing her candidacy. Vote for continuity. Vote for experience. Vote for Auntie Bimp, blared from the speakers, much to the annoyance of neighbors who were trying to take afternoon naps. She also tried to organize a rally in the small park near the club hall, complete with banners and refreshments. Unfortunately, only 12 people showed up, and half of them were her own family members who had been bribed with promises of free food. Meanwhile, Sister Folake, the disgraced treasurer, had gone into hiding. Nobody had seen her since the chaotic meeting, and rumors were flying about her whereabouts. Some said she had fled to her village in Ondo State. Others claimed she was hiding in Lagos, trying to figure out how to return the stolen money before the election. The most interesting development, however, came from an unexpected source. 3 days before the election, Sister Mariam Abdullahi, a soft-spoken woman who had been a member for 8 years but rarely spoke during meetings, requested a private meeting with Mama Kimi, the chief whip. "I have something important to tell the club," she said quietly. "Something that will change everything." Mama Kimi, intrigued, agreed to give her time to speak at the election meeting. Tuesday came with unusual fanfare. Members arrived at the hall early, all wearing their matching yellow anchor uniforms, but this time the atmosphere was different. There was excitement, nervousness, and anticipation in the air. The hall had been properly arranged for the occasion. A ballot box had been borrowed from the local government office, and 3 members who were not contestants had been appointed as electoral officers. At exactly 2 p.m., Mama Kimi called the meeting to order. "Today, we elect new leadership for our club," she announced. "But before we begin voting, Sister Mariam has requested to address the gathering." Sister Mariam stood up slowly, her hands trembling slightly. The hall went quiet as everyone wondered what she had to say. "My sisters and brother," she began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke, "I have kept quiet for too long. But with 5 million naira at stake and our club's future hanging in the balance, I cannot remain silent anymore." She paused, looking directly at Auntie Bimp, who was sitting in the front row looking increasingly uncomfortable. "2 months ago, I was at the Ministry of Commerce for my own personal business. While waiting, I overheard a conversation between some officials. They were talking about a tailors club that had received a uniform supply contract worth N2 million, but the club president had convinced them to transfer the contract to Ogun State. The hall was so quiet you could hear people breathing. They mentioned the name of the club, our club, and they mentioned the name of the person who facilitated the transfer. It was Auntie Bimp." Auntie Bimp jumped to her feet. "That's a lie. You cannot prove." "I recorded the conversation," Sister Mariam said quietly. The hall erupted. But Sister Mariam wasn't finished. "I also recorded something else. Last week, when I went to Sister Folake's house to check on her after she disappeared, I heard her on the phone with someone. She was crying and begging the person to help her replace the money she had spent. She pulled out her phone. I have that recording too." The chaos that followed was indescribable. Women were shouting, jumping up from their seats, and demanding to hear the recordings. Auntie Bimp was denying everything, but her voice was drowned out by the noise. Mama Kimi had to bang the gavel repeatedly to restore order. "Play the recordings," demanded Mama Janet. Sister Mariam looked around the room, then at Mama Kimi, who nodded. The first recording was scratchy but clear enough. Government officials could be heard discussing how the deputy president of that tailors club had convinced them to move the contract to another state, with promises of faster delivery and better quality. They mentioned specific amounts and dates that matched exactly with what Sister Amaka had revealed the previous week. The second recording was even more damning. Sister Folake's voice could be clearly heard pleading with someone on the phone. "Please, I'm begging you. Help me find an 800,000 to replace in the club account. I know I shouldn't have used the money for my daughter's hospital bills, but I was desperate. If they find out. The voice on the other end was male, and though it was distorted, some members thought they recognized it as Brother Tunde, the same Brother Tunde who had been seen counting money with Sister Folake. When the recordings finished, the hall was in complete uproar. Some women were crying, others were shouting for justice, and a few were calling for the police to be contacted. Auntie Bimp made one last desperate attempt to save herself. Even if some mistakes were made, she said, her voice cracking, I still have more experience than the other candidates. I know how to run this club. Run it into the ground, shouted someone from the back. Steal from it, you mean, added another voice. It was clear that Auntie Bimp's political career was over. But the show had to go on. The voting proceeded with two candidates, Sister Adunni Okafor and Brother Emeka. Auntie Bimp's name remained on the ballot, but it was clear she had no chance. When the votes were counted, Sister Adunni Okafor had won by a landslide, 26 votes out of 30 cast. Brother Emeka received 3 votes, and Auntie Bimp received exactly 1 vote, probably her own. As Sister Adunni was declared the new president of the Tailors Club, the hall erupted in applause and jubilation. Women were hugging, crying tears of joy, and chanting her name. In her acceptance speech, President Adunni, as she would now be known, made several promises. My first act as president will be to institute a transparent financial system where every kobo is accounted for. My second act will be to recover the stolen funds and ensure that those responsible face the consequences of their actions. My third act will be to make sure that the 5 million naira grant is used for the benefit of all members, not just a select few. The applause was thunderous. She also announced the appointment of new officers. Brother Emeka was named vice president. Sister Amaka became the new treasurer, given her eagle eye for financial irregularities, and Mrs. Kayoma remained as secretary since she had not been implicated in any wrongdoing. As for Auntie Bimp and Sister Folake, they were formally expelled from the club and informed that legal action would be taken to recover the stolen funds. 3 months later, the Tailors Club was thriving under President Adunni's leadership. The 5 million naira grant had been put to excellent use. They had purchased new sewing machines, organized skills training workshops for unemployed youth in the community, and even started a microcredit scheme for members who wanted to expand their businesses. Sister Folake had returned from hiding and was cooperating with authorities to repay the stolen money. Brother Tunde's marriage had ended in divorce, but he was also working to make amends. Auntie Bimp, however, had disappeared entirely. Some said she had relocated to Abuja to start fresh. Others claimed she was working as a petty trader in one of the northern states. But everyone agreed on one thing: they were better off without her. The club's membership had grown from 30 to 55 members, all wearing their bright yellow anchor uniforms with pride. The weekly meetings were still lively, but now they were productively lively rather than chaotically lively. And every Tuesday, as they gathered in their hall with the high table properly occupied by honest leaders, the members would remember the day their democracy was tested and emerged stronger. President Adunni would often end meetings with the same words: unity through fabric, progress through truth. And unlike the previous leadership, she actually meant it. The Tailors Club had learned that in democracy, as in tailoring, the best results come when you use quality materials, follow the right patterns, and work together with skilled hands. They had successfully stitched together their community and their future. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please drop your comments, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when I drop new videos. See you in the next video.